Those who are here in person, to those who are live streaming, and our community members on the island of Catalina. Thank you for being with us tonight. I will ask Dr. Benitez to lead us in the pledge.
Okay, please stand, everyone.
That was beautiful. It sounded like singing in rounds. It sounded very nice. And at this time, I will ask our board secretary to take roll and establish a quorum.
Member Lopez.
Present.
Member Otto. President Craighead.
Here.
Member Benitez.
Here.
And Vice President Miller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And next on the agenda, we have the adoption of the agenda as posted.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 5-0. We have no student representative because it is summer and school is not in session, which brings us to recognitions, acknowledgements, and reports. And I believe we're going to start with a video. Or no? I skipped over that, didn't I? Thank you. And the ironic part about that, I waited to start the meeting until I had that report in hand. Thank you for the reminder. So the board has been meeting in closed session today regarding matters listed on the agenda. The board took action on the following items. On item 3.1, on a motion made by Member Benitez and seconded by Vice President Miller, the board voted 5-0 to approve public employment. And I will ask Mr. Moskovitz to provide the specifics, which is probably why you caught me on that one.
That is correct. Thank you, President Cricket. It's my pleasure to announce the promotion of Kathleen Suarez to the position of acting principal at Gompers Elementary. She was assistant principal at Adams and Tincher. Just spoke to her on the phone. She's super excited about this opportunity, and she's going to do a great job.
Thank you. And on item 3.2, on a motion made by Member Benitez and seconded by Member Otto, the board voted 5-0 to approve the terms of the settlement agreements in the OAH case number 20260503556. And on item 3.3, on a motion made by Member Benitez and seconded by Member Otto, the board voted 5-0 to approve the terms of the settlement agreements in anticipated litigation related to one special education matter. And then we will get to item number 10, and I believe we're going to start with a video, so I'll direct our attention to the screens.
My students have been working on a monster project, which is a collaboration with students at Twain Elementary School. The kindergartners drew pictures of monsters, and then my students used 3D modeling software to bring their imaginations to life.
We used a website called Tinkercad, which has a bunch of 3D shapes, and we put them together. We created these monsters where they could stand and play as an actual toy.
So I've always struggled with 3D modeling. It's always been something I'm not very good at. And during this project, I got a lot better at it, and I'm actually really excited to present these to the kindergartners. I have a lot of little kids in my neighborhood, and I really like to see them smile, and I like to see their bright little faces. So I hope that the kindergarten kids get really happy when we present our monsters to them.
It's always fun to see what our students are up to. And next, this is a very exciting part, something that I look forward to every year. And we have the honor and pleasure tonight of introducing our 5 selected finalists, actually 3 in person, but we're going to introduce you to all 5 for the 2026-2027 Student Board Member. So this spring, Dr. Baker and I received 48 applications from 10 high schools, and criteria for eligibility included those students who have been elected to a leadership position by their peers, including class officers, student body officers, or holding a position of leadership in a school-sanctioned club. Candidates were evaluated based on the criteria established in Board Policy 9150 and Administrative Regulation 9150. Qualities we looked for included academic performance, demonstration of responsibility and ethics, and a potential to excel in the role of student board member. It will become apparent with the introduction of the 5 selected finalists that they have more than exceeded these qualifications. Each finalist is a shining example of everything we hope to see in our students. So each board member will be introducing one of the 5 finalists, and we will start with Member Lopez.
Well, I do have the honor of introducing Isaac Rodriguez Garcia. Isaac Rodriguez Garcia is a rising senior at Jordan High School, dedicated to public service, mental health advocacy, and academic excellence. Recognized by teachers as a highest achieving scholar, Isaac's standout accomplishment includes being considered for a position on California's Superintendent's Youth Advisory Council, as well as a Pathway Ambassador for the Ames Academy at Jordan High School. On campus, he holds vital leadership positions, serving as a school site council secretary and participating actively in the principal's advisory and WASC committees. As a bilingual leader, Isaac regularly supports multilingual learners by translating in class to build their academic confidence. In the community, he acts as a social advocate for the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. As a peer health advocate, he has collaborated with school administration to lead educational campaigns against vape usage, and Isaac seeks to use this platform to ensure marginalized and Spanish-speaking students are fully included and empowered. So let's give him a big hand.
And is there anyone here or at home you'd like to acknowledge?
Yes. Hello, everyone, members of the board, the public, and to my amazing parents. Me llamo Isaac Rodriguez Garcia, and might I just add that it is such an honor standing here tonight, representing my Northside Long Beach, Jordan High School, and my multilingual learners. The biggest thanks I want to give is my parents, mi mamá y mi papá, que siempre se esfuerzan para levantarse cada día, aunque tiene dolor, aunque tiene frío, aunque tiene una enfermedad para trabajar. Y con ese esfuerzo, ellos han hecho un hijo, yo, para ser un hijo valiente y un hijo que es muy fuerte. And I just want to thank you both. Les doy muchas gracias por serme la persona que soy hoy. And I also just want to thank President Craighead, Dr. Twall, my amazing mentor. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And for the ex-superintendent, Dr. Baker. Without these people in my life, I wouldn't be here, standing here on this podium, representing my people who are right now, in this current time, being shunned because of what they speak and how they look. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Member Otto.
I have the opportunity and great pleasure of introducing our second candidate, and that is Skylan Barua. I understand she's here. Ms. Barua is a rising senior at Jordan High School and a highly compassionate leader who cares deeply for students across Long Beach. Pulling from her Bengali heritage, she brings her unique background to the leadership roles as President of Youth Leadership Ambassadors, President of the Southeast Asia Club, Vice President of HOSA, AIMS Pathway Ambassador, and Link Crew Leader. Her key accomplishments include being selected for an internship at Kaiser Permanente, where she serves as an employee health services intern, handling medical records and networking with health professionals. With aspirations of becoming a cardiologist, Skylan dedicates her time to fostering community health in partnership with Green Light Long Beach, a coalition led by the Long Beach Human and Health Services, and as an intern with the Tobacco Education and Prevention Program. Through these roles, she breaks the barriers surrounding cannabis misuse and facilitates education to help make Long Beach a healthier, more educated community. Congratulations on your nominations, and we'll see. Is there anyone that you would like to?
I would like to thank my parents. Of course, they've been a sense of inspiration for me, but also helping me push forward. You know, I didn't get the position, but I still continue to advocate for my community, even if, you know, the position isn't everything. It's what it's inside my heart. What I feel for my community, what I do for my community is what matters. And coming from Bangladesh, I initially wanted this position to just help, you know, promote like multilingual learners. You know, coming from Jordan, we have a lot of multilingual learners. Want to improve their sense of belonging, but also, you know, show more like more people like me on the school board. But unfortunately, things don't go your way. But you know, you have to take things in stride, and I'm making that in my internship at Kaiser, and it's been rewarding because you know, as you heard, I want to become. That wasn't. That was not me. As you heard, I wanted to become a cardiologist, which is it's a very big goal. It's a very long goal, and I'm aware, but it's what I've wanted since I was a kid. It's what my parents want, and no matter what I do, they support me, and I thank them always.
Dr. Benitez.
Thank you, President Craighead. So it's my honor and privilege to congratulate Anali Bojorquez, who is unfortunately not able to be here tonight, but will still read her vast experiences and accomplishments. Anali Bojorquez is an accomplished rising senior at Pauley High School, whose global background, having traveled to 17 countries, fuels her passion for equity and diversity. A major milestone in her leadership journey includes being named a semifinalist for the California State Board of Education student member position, reaching the final top 6 candidates statewide. At Pauley, Anali serves as president of UNICEF, Secretary General of Model United Nations, and Secretary for the Female Leadership Academy. Her outstanding community impact is highlighted by her role as the founder of California Students for Justice, a student-led activism group through which she has organized peaceful community demonstrations for immigrant rights. Additionally, Anali serves her school community as a bilingual peer tutor, bridging communication gaps to ensure that English language learners have an equitable path to academic success. So all of our students here advocating on behalf of our multilingual learners. Anali has also named one of 4 youth poet ambassadors for the city of Long Beach. Congratulations, Anali.
Member Miller.
Okay. Well, I have the honor of introducing the room to Elena Castillo. Elena Castillo is a high-achieving rising senior in the PACE program at Polytechnic High School with deep commitment to civic engagement and public policy. Elena has built a remarkable leadership portfolio culminating in an election as Poly's upcoming ASB president for fall of 2026. Her extensive school service includes roles as ASB secretary, Model UN vice president, president of Best Buddies, and co-captain of varsity cheer, which my mom was also co-captain of varsity cheer back in the 1970s, but I've digressed. Notably, Elena founded Jackrabbits for Equity, Inclusion and Change, an organization that presents campus equity research annually to Cal State Long Beach, faculty, and students. In the community, she spearheaded a vital public health initiative that trained nearly 200 members on Narcan administration and opioid overdose response. Furthermore, she is entering her second summer as a volunteer intern with Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. As an RSVP ambassador, Elena is eager to bring her collaborative project management skills to the board. Congratulations, and is there anyone you would like to recognize today?
I'd like to acknowledge my parents and my grandparents here tonight for raising me and giving me everything. I'd also like to acknowledge the teachers in LBUSD who have helped shape me to who I am today. So I'd like to thank Dr. Vega, Mr. Puth, Mr. Glogly, Mr. Waddles, Dr. Saito, and Ms. Tai for their belief in me and really putting me on the path to get to where I am today. And I'd also like to thank the board here tonight and Dr. Twall for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
And our 5th finalist is Ty Sedaris Sanchez. So Ty Sedaris Sanchez is an exceptional rising senior in the PACE program at Polytechnic High School, maintaining a stellar 4.45 weighted GPA, raised by a single immigrant mother who worked multiple jobs to provide for her family. Ty Sedaris channels his personal and familiar resilience into profound community and school leadership. His key accomplishments include completing a prestigious judicial internship with the Los Angeles Superior Court and mastering 7 rigorous AP courses. So far, he's just going into his senior year. Just going into his senior year. 7, okay. At Poly, he serves as the ASB Commissioner of Organizations, where he manages campus clubs and fosters diversity and community by planning homecoming and intercultural fairs. Ty Sedaris is a passionate advocate for multilingual inclusion, is an ELD translator aide. He advocated for multilingual inclusion by translating school information and assignments for students and parents. In fact, as Commissioner of Welfare and coordinator of his school's blood drive, he prioritized bilingual promotion, which successfully doubled donations. His community service includes volunteering at the local city library, running cross-country, and participating in UCI's early academic outreach program. He is dedicated to championing educational equity and opportunity on the board. Ty. And is there anybody here at home or at home that you would like to acknowledge?
Of course. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Zaid. I would definitely like to thank, first and foremost, LBUSD, specifically former Superintendent Baker, Ms. Craighead, or President Craighead, and Dr. Twall for this opportunity and for allowing me to be here as a finalist. I really appreciate that. I definitely want to thank and appreciate, as Elena mentioned, all of my teachers who have shaped me to who I am today. and especially Dr. Vega and Mr. Puth, who are here today. I really appreciate them and all of their support and kindness throughout my journey, both in ASB and in school in general. And finally, I would like to thank my mother, who's really the reason for everything that I do. She herself is a multilingual learner, and that's really what inspires me to support other multilingual learners. She raised me as a single, hardworking mother. She's the hardest worker that I know, and she's really who inspires me every day. So that's really the main person that I would like to thank today, and I really appreciate this opportunity again.
You know, I noticed that a few of you mentioned teachers and everything, and going through the applications and reading about what the students wrote is really a love letter to the teachers and administrators. Over and over again, the students mentioned how having teachers that see something in themselves that they might not see yet, and having that encouragement, and having teachers as mentors, it makes all the difference. And we see from the quality of the students we have here tonight, the difference it makes to have good teachers in their lives. So with that, we're going to have a brief pause and do some pictures. So I'm going to invite up our 5 finalists, and we'll have a little photo shoot over here. Little pause in our meeting. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda, the item number 11, public hearing, but there's no public hearing this evening, which brings us to public testimony on items listed on the agenda. Do we have any speakers for items listed on the agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay, then that brings us to public testimony on items not listed on the agenda.
We have 18 speakers for items not listed on the agenda.
And I'm going to motion to extend public comment time to give everyone who's here to give a public comment opportunity to speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, if we could have a time when the 30-minute period is up, if we could check to see how many more remaining speakers are.
Yes, we will do. And our first public speaker is Rudy. Oh,
Yeah. Any further discussion? No. In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 5-0. We'll allow extra time.
And our first speaker is Rudy Kraus, followed by Mo Baker.
My name is Rudy Kraus. I've been speaking here with you guys about diversity, equity, and inclusion and the fallacy of all of that for the last 5 years. The flag, this is the culture of the United States. Islam is not the culture of the United States. You're working on a faulty premise when you say that multiculturalism is our greatest strength. It is not. Multiculturalism without assimilation is our greatest weakness. Immigration without assimilation is invasion. And we can see what's happening in Europe now. I hope you've been doing your homework. I hope you at least watched Citizen Vigilante to get a quick update. Sub-Saharan Africa has taken over all of Europe. Those countries, those 44 European nations, they will all become Muslim. The people are in fear of their lives every day because these multicultural people, our greatest strength, they come over and they rape, they knife, they murder, they behead. So is multiculturalism, as you stated, our greatest strength? No, it's not. Multiculturalism with assimilation is our greatest strength. You need to correct your statement and present that to the students so I don't have to listen to students talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in some random concept that is not true at all. Diversity for who? Everyone but white. Equity for who? Everyone but white. Inclusion for who? Everyone but white. What a slap in the face for white people. We build the whole world. Then we invite you to come and stay in our countries. And what do? It's the old concept of the student killing the teacher so that they can claim they were the smart ones all along, and they did it. And then they rewrite us out of history. That's what Islam is happening. This is an ideological war that's going on in the United States. You guys have to teach the students correctly. We will be taken over by Islam. Look at Europe. They're bringing in another 3 million people into Spain. You think Madrid looks the same way as it used to? You think Paris does? There's looting and rioting and rapes.
Thank you for your comments. Before we move forward, I want to clarify that although the board is required by law to offer an opportunity for public comment on items within the board's authority, the opinions shared by speakers on their own do not represent the views of this board, the district, or its employees. The comments just made may have included statements that some members of our community find offensive, hurtful, or inconsistent with our values. The board rejects racism, discrimination, and prejudice in all forms. We are committed to providing safe, welcoming, and inclusive environments for every student, employee, and family, regardless of race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or any other protected characteristic. At the same time, our role is to conduct this meeting in accordance with the law, which includes providing an opportunity for public comment. We value the community's ongoing commitment to respectful engagement as we carry out the important work of serving all students. We will now go on to our next speaker. Your time is up. Thank you, sir. your time is up. You have had your 3 minutes allowed by law. Your time is up. Please sit down and allow the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Mo Baker.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, I'll just make a comment that was horrific and inappropriate. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mo Baker, and I am the parent of a rising TK student here in Long Beach Unified. She'll be going to Burbank Elementary. I'm here tonight representing Schools Beyond Screens Long Beach, which is a grassroots organization of parents across our district working to bring intentional tech policy to our schools. Before anything else, I want to say welcome and congratulations to our new superintendent. This, I think, is your first meeting with us, so we wanted you to hear directly from our group. From what I've read, you've spent 32 years in this district, which is so impressive, and now you get to be our next bold leader, so that's really exciting. We are excited to have you because with that kind of history, you must understand what's at stake for our kids better than anyone else. And we are hopeful that includes the question of how technology shows up in our classrooms. For those who weren't in the room when we first introduced ourselves, our chapter formed only months ago and has grown quickly, with parents from across our district joining. Schools Beyond Screens is a national movement, and Long Beach is one of many communities that have decided we recognize the simple truth that the way digital devices are currently used in our classroom isn't always serving the well-being of our children. In our neighboring district, LBUSD passed a Using Technology with Intention resolution, and this fall it takes effect. LBUSD students in TK through first grade will no longer have digital devices in the classroom. Student-led use of YouTube and video streaming platforms during school will be prohibited. Screen time will be capped by grade level and other important considerations that will help keep our students safe. We are here again to ask Long Beach to do the same and maybe more. To be clear, we are not an anti-technology group. We welcome a thoughtful approach to ed tech in our schools, but we want screens to be a purposeful tool and not the default environment our kids spend their days in. We also want to restate a fiscal transparency concern we believe the board has an obligation to address. LBUSD is facing a large deficit and has cut hundreds of teachers' positions. At the same time, our district continues to spend significant public dollars on ed tech software contracts with no clear public picture of what those contracts cost or if they're actually helping our kids. We are asking the board to do what LAUSD did, publish an itemized report of all active classroom tech contracts, what we're paying, and what results we are actually getting. We should not be laying off teachers while writing blank checks to private ed tech companies that have never been held accountable to our community. To our new superintendent, this is also a moment that we ask that intentional evidence-based tech policy become a priority under your leadership. A formal district work group on this issue is something we desire and would love to take part in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Leah, followed by Kim.
Should I begin now? Good evening, board members. My name is Leah, and I go to Rogers Middle School. I came here today to talk about an extremely important topic that is affecting kids in schools one by one like a worldwide plague: electronics in schools. Now, schools like mine have budget cuts just because of electronics and educational technology. Educational technology is playing an irritable video game that just never stops. If you're a parent of a kid that goes to an elementary school in Long Beach, you probably have heard of ST Math or GG Math. ST Math is a math game that is supposed to help you with math. When I was in elementary school, there was one big competition between who finished the game and who did it first. With every level, there is no exclamation, which makes it even more frustrating. It is a game that feels like it's endless. You also won't learn anything because you're speeding right through it. They disguise it as educational technology and say it helps kids with learning, even though it does little to nothing with kids' education just to make a fortune out of it. Because of all the money we lost from all the so-called educational technology, we are cutting teachers' jobs. And at my school, we won't have a library anymore, nor a wellness center.
The Wellness Center is so gravely important for the kids at my school who are struggling mentally or are having issues at school. It is such a heartless move to be taking away such an important part of kids' well-being. All the money that the schools are spending on technology is leading to a terrible cause. From a kid's perspective, it feels so lonely and isolated beyond Chromebooks every day with our headphones on. There's extremely little communication, and the class is all silent. It truly feels forlorn. To summarize, schools are losing money to so-called educational technology that is nothing educational-wise. Because of budget cuts, teachers in important areas like the library and wellness center won't be here next school year. Technology should be banished from schools. The only effects that it has are negative. Do you want your kids to excel in school? Do you think screens should be in schools? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kim, followed by Amy McAndrews.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kim, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Schools Beyond Screens to discuss our concerns regarding the excessive use of technology in the classroom and during after-school homework. More and more districts across the country and globe are now realizing that excessive use of screens are to blame for the decline in test scores. They are following the research which reveals that too much reliance on screens can reduce focus, weaken comprehension, and replace deeper skills with shallow responses. It has been shown that taking notes by hand, drawing diagrams, and reading printed text all help to strengthen retention, whereas digital formats fail to do so. Students learn from their teachers and peers. We are losing face-to-face discussion due to the overuse of tech. These face-to-face discussions build empathy, listening skills, and the ability to think critically together. LA Unified School District just passed a groundbreaking screen time policy which would eliminate student devices for early education through FIRST and limit screen time for older students based on daily and weekly minutes. YouTube will be banned, and EdTech audits will take place annually to ensure tech products meet educational standards. We would also like to see a pause on the use of AI in our district until we can prove that the benefits outweigh potential risks. It is unfair to allow our kids to be used as guinea pigs. It's time for our district to embrace intentional, kid-centered, evidence-based policies around classroom tech. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Allison, followed by Ruby Martinez. I'm sorry, Amy McAndrews, followed by Allison.
Okay. All right. I'm the final speaker from the Schools Beyond Screens. Good evening, Board President Craighead and members of the board. My name is Amy McAndrews. My 2 children attend Carver Elementary, and I'm also a school-based occupational therapist who works in elementary schools in the neighboring district of Los Alamitos. I'm here tonight to share my experience and observations of the increased reliance on screens in elementary schools as both a parent and a school-based therapist. As an OT, my focus is on students' motor skills, their ability to work with standard classroom tools, to hold a pencil, to build and create. I do work with students with a range of disabilities which might impact their fine motor and visual motor skills. These students, of course, have IEPs with their own services and accommodations. But in addition to this caseload of students, I also work with teachers to provide Tier 1 interventions, which help facilitate fine motor development for all students. I have seen such a huge increase in teachers asking me for strategies, and also an increase in requests for screenings and evaluations of students who struggle to do things like hold a pencil correctly, sit upright in their chair all day, and attend to instruction. Many of the activities and strategies I find myself recommending to parents and teachers for students struggling were commonplace activities in my childhood and at school. Climbing on the jungle gym, drawing with sidewalk chalk, rolling Play-Doh, and counting with manipulatives during math time are all ways to use the muscles that we need for school. Kids today inarguably spend less time doing these things and more time on screens. In the absence of these activities, I see students struggle more with writing generally. They fatigue quickly, they begin to develop a negative association with the practice of writing. So many of the very young elementary students I work with tell me they don't like writing and they prefer to be on the computer. Other students I work with struggle to transition away from screens throughout the school day. These are all anecdotal observations I've made as a therapist working with students, but as a parent, I am equally concerned when my daughter, who is in kindergarten, is introduced to screen-based programs such as GG or ST Math. I bring this up because the larger trend towards more screens in elementary classrooms and the idea that more technology equals more innovation or quality instruction is problematic. As a parent and therapist, I wonder, what is being lost when students learn to Google questions constantly or take shortcuts through AI rather than engaging in problem solving and critical thinking? What does it mean for students to spend less time wrestling with concepts, building things from scratch with their hands, planning and executing their ideas? I have seen students who may already struggle with frustration tolerance and transitions melt down after playing screen-based games for math or reading because these games provide extrinsic motivation and stimulation that class dialogue cannot. Intellectual struggles are not appealing to students in comparison to gamified activities on a screen. I, like the other oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Allison, followed by Ruby Martinez.
Mi nombre es Allison y soy estudiante del programa de inmersión
My name is
dual.
Allison, and I'm part of the
Asistir
dual
a
immersion.
Stevens ha sido
I attended
una de las
Stevenson's,
mejores.
and it has been one of the best experiences of my life. The dual immersion program has helped me to improve my Spanish, to be able to communicate better with my family and also with my friends. As a student, a Hispanic student, this means a lot for me because the language maintains me connected with my roots. When I attended Stevenson's, it takes me about 20 minutes to get to school, and if the program is able to go to another school, then I would have to wake up between 4 to 4:30 a.m. because transportation would be a lot more time. And this would make it to be more time and a lot of stress for students and families. And this creates an issue because students, the parents, and the community members don't have the real opportunity to be able to express their opinion before that decision was made. The students that have built relationships and friendships have found different support systems at Stevenson, and we are hoping that we can start, now that we have to start in a new school. This last year at Stevenson has helped me to grow, to be more responsible, and to be more sure of myself. I have learned a lot, and I have bettered my Spanish as well. And also, I know that this is part of the school community. This program, by removing this program, is like taking something from my culture. And also, it affects my friends and also the place where I grew up. Please give us the opportunity to be able to finish at Stevenson's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ruby Martinez, followed by Sophia.
You know, before we go to the next speaker, I think there was a problem with our devices. We weren't getting audio on that, so how can we have follow-up on that public comment? Can we get a translation at some time?
Madam Craighead, for the sake of honoring public comment, my suggestion would be, if I need to make a motion, I'm happy to do that, for us to hear that public comment again with interpretation.
Okay, so are you recommending that we have the speaker?
That speaker give the public comment again so that we can get proper interpretation.
Test.
Okay.
And I would make another, since we're on the subject, another suggestion, that if we can also let the board know and the audience know whether the comment will be given in what language, because interpretation started and then folks were trying to put their equipment together.
Yeah.
If we know in what language they're going to be giving.
Yeah. And just to give you a little bit more transparency about what's going on, we're trying a new piece of technology out today. And so unfortunately, we're working out some of the kinks so that we can have simultaneous translation. And so once again, we apologize, as I know it already creates a little bit of anxiety presenting to all of these fancy adults. But you sound great, so we know you got this. One more time for us? Okay.
Formar parte de comunidad escolar.
This last year at Stevenson, I was able to mature, to grow, and have more confidence in myself, and also to improve my Spanish.
Quitar este programa es como quitarme una parte de mi cultura, de mis amistades y del lugar donde más he crecido.
If you were to remove this program, it's like removing part of my culture and the place where I grew up.
Por favor, denos la oportunidad de terminar nuestro camino en Stevens.
Please give us the opportunity to finish this at Stevens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Ruby Martinez, followed by Sophia Grace.
My name is Rumi Martinez, and I am a student in the dual immersion program at Stevens Middle School. You have stated that no student's future should be decided by their zip code or their family circumstances, but that's what is happening to us. Moving our dual immersion program to Stevens Middle School to Hoover may not seem like a big deal to some people, but for many of us students, it means we won't be able to continue the program we have worked so hard to be a part of. Some of our parents can't drive us across the city every day, Some have to work early, take care of younger brothers and sisters, or don't have transportation. We didn't choose where we live, but we did choose to work hard. Please don't make us lose this opportunity because of where we live. If mate masi means listening and taking action, then please listen to us and protect our program at Stevens. We just want the same chance to succeed as every other student in this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sophia Grace Kelly Ramirez.
Hello, my name is Sophia Grace Kelly Ramirez, and I'm an incoming 7th grader at Stevens Middle School. I started the dual immersion program at Webster Elementary, and it has been a very important part of my life. It has helped me become a better student, taught me another language, and given me more self-confidence. Stevens is my home school. It is where my friends are and where I feel comfortable and where I want to continue learning. When I heard that the DI program might be moved, I was very sad because I don't want to leave the school and community that feels like home. I hope you will think about the students like me who have worked in this program for many years. We love our school and we just want the chance to continue our education at Stevens. Thank you for listening to me and considering our voices. And I would like to give a special shout out and happy birthday to my mom. Thank you.
Next we have Vanessa Loza, followed by Rosa Diaz.
My name is Vanessa, and I'm the mother of 3 children who have all been part of the dual immersion program at Webster and at Stevens Middle School. I have a child in the 4th grade, another in the 6th grade, and my oldest in the 7th. This decision doesn't affect just one of my children, it affects my entire family. My 7th grader has been in the dual immersion program since transitional kindergarten. For 8 years, she has worked hard to become bilingual. Today, she can read, write, and communicate in both English and Spanish. This program has given her confidence, a sense of identity, and academic opportunities that I never had growing up. It has helped her become a stronger student and a more confident young woman. Now, we are being told that if she wants to continue the program she has dedicated nearly her entire education to, she must transfer to Hoover Middle School. For my family, this is not a realistic option. I do not have the transportation or the resources to drive my children to Hoover Middle School, a 12-mile trip every day, like many families on the west side. I work and have other children to care for. I also have a child entering the 6th grade and another in the 4th. This decision creates a hardship that reaches my entire household. Families should not have to choose between continuing their children's education and having safe, reliable transportation. If this district believes that this is the best decision, then I respectfully ask, where is the data showing that this move benefits students? We have heard about consolidation, but we have not seen the evidence that this decision will improve students' outcome. What we do know is what our children stand to lose, and I ask you to remember that behind every number is a child. Behind every statistic is a family like mine. My children have dedicated years to this program, and they deserve the chance to finish what they started. My oldest has invested 8 years, and my younger children deserve the same opportunity. Removing the program from our community sends this ugly message that the Westside family has fewer choices and fewer opportunities than others. You feel like no one cares, like Westside children don't deserve the same education opportunities like others in the district. I am not asking for special treatment. I am asking for fairness. So before you make a final decision, I respectfully ask that you put this issue back on the agenda. Keep dual immersion at Stevens Middle School and take the time to truly consider the impact it will have on our children and our community. Please don't rush a decision that will affect students for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Rosa Diaz, followed by Maribel Castañeda.
Good evening, President, board members, Superintendent Zaid, and members of the community. My name is Rosa Diaz, and I am a bilingual educator, a proud Long Beach Unified graduate, and someone whose life was changed by educational opportunity. As a student from the west side of Long Beach, I benefited from poly-PACE programs and district transportation from 1983 to 1986. That access opened doors I might never have had. It led to my acceptance at UC Irvine and also at Cal State Long Beach. It inspired me to return back to Long Beach Unified and serve Long Beach students as a bilingual teacher from 1993 up until 1998. That is why I'm asking you to preserve the dual immersion program at Stevens Middle School. Programs that expand opportunities should be strengthened, not reduced. Just as access helps shape my future, today's students deserve programs that prepare them to be bilingual, biliterate, and globally competitive. I understand the district's financial challenges. However, before eliminating a successful academic program, our community deserves a clear explanation of the financial analysis behind this recommendation. Families have raised thoughtful questions about projected savings, alternatives, and the long-term impact on enrollment, yet many still feel they have not received complete information. I urge the district to review every available funding source, including transportation and enrichment funding where legally permissible, before reducing programs that have a lasting impact on students. We owe our families a thorough review of every option. Transparency builds trust. Decisions of this magnitude should be made with clear financial data, meaningful community input, and a commitment to putting students first. My story is proof that when a district invests in opportunity, the impact can last a lifetime. Long Beach Unified invested in me, and I respectfully ask you to do the same for the next generation by preserving the dual immersion program at Stevens Middle School. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and your continued service to the students and families of Long Beach Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Maribel Castañeda, followed by Alicia Iraeta.
Patricia? I know it's a little rogue here, but we had a small change in the schedule, and I was just curious on how we're doing on time. I know we were going to do a time check.
Right now, we're at 29 minutes, but we also had the translation piece, so it's about an additional 6 minutes.
Good evening, board members and superintendents. My name is Maribel Castaneda, and I am here this evening on behalf of the Webster Elementary dual immersion students and family to ask for equity, access, and transparency in the future of dual immersion LBUSD. I'm shaking, I'm nervous. This is emotional, this is to the heart. This year, Webster celebrated 30 years of dual immersion. Since 1995, Webster families and teachers and students have built strong, bilingual, biliterate communities. Families commit 6 years to this program with the expectation that their children will have pathway to continue their dual immersion education through middle school. This year, 46 fifth graders from Webster graduated from Webster, yet only 9 students are moving on to Keller. That's 19%. Will continue in the dual immersion at Keller Middle School. The question we need to ask is, why are so many students leaving a program that they worked so hard to complete? The answer many families have shared is transportation. Students are not leaving because they no longer value dual immersion. They are leaving because the continuation pathway has become a barrier. Families deserve the opportunity to continue the commitment they started in kindergarten. When Keller Middle School's dual immersion program opened in 2014, it was an important milestone because it created the district's first middle school dual immersion continuation pathway. At that time, Diana Craighead represented District 5, and she is now and served as the board president. When Keller opened, sorry, I lost my place. My question is, why was the first middle school pathway established on the east side when Webster Elementary, one of the LBUSD longest running dual immersion programs, had already been serving Westside families since 1995. When Keller opened in 2014, Webster had nearly 20 years of dual immersion history. Patrick Henry's dual immersion program began in 2007. And the Patrick Henry kindergarten students were the first graduating fifth graders who attended Keller when it was first opened. Webster's program, however, had already established a strong foundation and had even faced possible closure. It was the dedication of the Webster's families who advocated for the program, shares its values with other families, and helped it survive and grow. Today, Webster's dual immersion program is thriving, with 2 immersion classes at every grade level and 3 classes in TK and kindergarten. Patrick Henry currently has 1 dual immersion class per grade level. Webster's success reflects decades of commitment from families, educators, and the community. During the opening of Keller, a parent came before this very board asking for a Westside Middle School dual immersion option.
I'm sorry, but that's the 3 minutes. Thank you.
Next we have Alicia Iraeta.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Alicia Irajeta, and I'm here to plead to please keep the DI program open at Stevens and put it back on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Tia Hart, followed by Therina Bailey.
Hello. I'm going to talk about the specific transportation issues that involve real students and real barriers to accessing the quality education they were promised. The data shows the difference in access and additional barriers students may face when trying to reach their DI program, their middle school DI program, without multiple pathways. There are real students, real families, and real impacts on their educational opportunities. Bus rides, Lafayette Elementary, 42 minutes to an hour to Hoover. Lafayette Elementary to Stevens, 25 to 35 minutes. Webster Elementary to Hoover, 45 minutes to 1 hour and 12 minutes. Webster Elementary, 10 minutes to Stevens, 0 bus transfers. Cesar Chavez Elementary, 1 hour and 14 minutes. Cesar Chavez to Stevens Middle School, 30 minutes. Willard Elementary, 48 minutes to an hour and 13 minutes. Willard Elementary to Stevens, 45 minutes. A board member shared a very inspiring life story about coming from humble beginnings and becoming the first person in their family to graduate from college with the help of the nonprofit sector, Long Beach Unified School District, and the support of great parents. We want the same opportunities for our children. The children on the west side and in downtown Long Beach need LBUSD to believe in them, to invest in them, and to recognize how brilliant and special they are and how much potential they have for the future. They deserve access to a high-quality education and opportunities that will help them to succeed. One way LBUSD can continue providing these opportunities is by allowing the dual immersion program to remain at Stevens Middle School. Keeping the program at Stevens ensures that students continue to have access to a strong educational pathway and supports their growth, achievement, and future and success. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have reached our 30-minute mark.
We approved the.
Yeah, I believe we did. I think we made a motion to extend time.
Yeah, fine.
So our next speaker is Therina Bailey.
All right. Good evening. I'm Therina Bailey, a parent of this 7th grader who's a Stevens dual language immersion student. He attended Bigsby Elementary for K through 5, and we reside in District 4, Member Otto's district. Stevens was a deliberate and intentional choice for my child. He's doing amazing, he's thriving, and it's the best choice I could have made for him. It's why I was deeply disappointed to learn of the program's closure. In April, I sent a letter to then Superintendent Dr. Baker and 2 members of this board explaining my frustration, expressing concerns about the lack of family engagement, equity, investment in our program throughout this year, and whose voices were being prioritized in this process. These concerns remain today. As you've heard tonight from several families, students, this proposal creates significant barriers to access, and it does not reflect the commitment of this district to excellence and equity. There are proven dual immersion program models across the country that expand access while preserving neighborhood and strand-based pathways. Maintaining Stevens as a pathway while adding Keller's dual immersion at Hoover as a pathway would create and minimize disruption. It would strengthen long-term capacity, decrease attrition, and create room for continued growth. Based upon your own projections, you will reach capacity by 2033. And so we will repeat this same question again with a different board who will have to again wonder why we're at the same number of no room at another school, because you have chosen one single site to invest in, just like you did at the point of Keller's transition. This plan is not a long-term solution. It simply delays the problem, repeats the pattern of exclusion, and leaves a future board facing the same challenge again. District 5 continues to repeat and receive the DI investment, while students and families across the city are asked to figure out how to align their academic goals. And what we have to say is, what about the rest of the board? What about your district? When we ask about and think about your constituents as you sit on this board, the school district should represent each district. How are we thinking about growth, access, equity, and overall perception of quality that we are being represented? How can we all do a better job of making dual language learning accessible across LBUSD? I'd like to close with a message that our new superintendent recently shared with our community. He said he keeps what he hears, and even more importantly, he hears and he turns it into action. During this time, we have had several people listen to us. They have sat and they have heard us. And tonight you've heard from students, parents, educators, and community members. The question is not whether you've heard us, the question is what you will do with what you've heard. In education, families should never feel their voices were simply part of the process, rather the destiny.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mabel Martinez, followed by Crystal Ramirez.
Hello. Good evening, Superintendent and board members. My name is Mabel Martinez. I am a parent, a community advocate for the West Side. Tonight, I want to address decisions to remove the dual immersion pathway from Stevens Middle School. The district often speaks about equity, but equity is not taking away opportunity from one community while preserving them elsewhere. Equity means ensuring every child has access to high-quality education programs. For years, West Long Beach families have invested in the dual immersion program. Our students have worked hard to become bilingual, biliterate, and culturally competent. Now, instead of strengthening that pathway, the district is dismantling the one opportunity our children have to continue that education on the West Side. This decision disappropriately impacts families who have already faced barriers to transportation and access. Asking students to travel farther to continue a program they were encouraged to enter is not equity. It shifts the burden from the district to the families. What is most concerning is that many parents believe this decision was moved forward without meaningful engagement. Community voices were heard only after the process was already underway. Listening after a decision has effectively been made is not collaboration. Transparency is more than informing the public. It means involving the public before decisions that affect our children are finalized. I also want to say this respectfully. Leadership carries influence, but influence that is not aligned with your stated commitments to equity, community partnerships, and students' opportunity weakens public trust. Your actions must reflect the values this district asks families to believe in. The issue is bigger than one program. It is about whether West Long Beach students are offered the same opportunity as students in every other part of this district. We are asking you to restore the dual immersion pathway at Stevens Middle School and work with families to strengthen, not eliminate. And I want to leave you with this. To whom much is given, much will be required. Public office comes with public responsibility. The community is paying attention. We will continue asking questions, requesting transparency, and expecting accountability. We are not going away because our children's education is worth fighting for. Please do not mistake our patience for acceptance. We will continue to advocate until every Westside student has the same educational opportunities that have been promised throughout the district. May God give each of you the wisdom, discernment, and courage to do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Crystal Ramirez, followed by Taylor Thomas.
Good evening, board members. My name is Crystal Ramirez. One moment. Okay. Yeah. I'm the proud mother of an incoming 7th grader at Stevens Middle School. Her name is Sophia Grace Kelly Ramirez. Sophia Grace began her dual immersion journey at Webster Elementary, where she grew academically, socially, and emotionally through the program. She has continued to thrive in Stevens' DI program. And I have firsthand, oh no, I lost my place again. And I have firsthand seen how much this opportunity has benefited her. When I completed the survey about making Stevens a dedicated dual immersion school, I was beyond excited. I believe this would be an opportunity to strengthen the program, support our students, and allow families to continue building the community that they have already invested in. Now, hearing that Stevens DI program may be taken away and the students may be moved across town has been heartbreaking. Stevens is my daughter's home school and is where she belongs. She has built relationships with teachers and classmates, sorry, and where she would be able to continue her education. I understand that the district has a difficult decision to make, but I ask that you please consider the impact these changes will have on the students and families who have committed years. No. A successful program should be supported and strengthened, not removed from the community that helped build it. Our children have worked really hard. They have grown through dual immersion, and they deserve the opportunity to continue that journey in their own school community. I respectfully ask that the board to listen to the families, the students, and educators who believe in Stevens' DI program, and to consider preserving it for the students who depend on it. Thank you for your time and for listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Next, we have Taylor Thomas, followed by our last speaker, Melissa Roman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Thomas. I'm a 4th generation West Sider and a member with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. I'm here to support keeping the DI initiative at Stevens Middle School, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the parents and supporters who brought their passion, they brought their children. We have 27 people in the overflow room. If folks are here and in support of this, please feel free to rise so they can see how much passion and power we have in this space. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm a product of Long Beach Unified School District. I've actually done all of my schooling in Long Beach. This program would have been beneficial to me. My neighbors and my best friends were Spanish-speaking folks. And I love them dearly, but we couldn't communicate sometimes. I would have loved to be able to tell my neighbor that the chicken she tried to fry was still bloody. Didn't happen. All jokes aside, I'm not a parent, but I'm very much invested in the next generation. People that love and advocate for children, they do not do things that harm them. And making a program harder or impossible to access is harmful. I also had to take transit from middle school to my home on the west side. One day my mom dropped me off and she's like, I can't take you and be on time to work anymore, so you have to figure out how to get home. And as an almost 40-year-old, you know, I talk about that story as a character building opportunity, figuring out public transportation. But as an 11-year-old, it was very scary. And I was a young girl. I was consistently harassed by my peers. I would not wish that on any student, to have to figure out how to get home safely on the bus, or any parent to have to put that on their child and their family to figure out. Giving parents little to no opportunity or input and giving them little notice is also harmful. What type of educators tasked with nurturing our most precious beings in this world, children, who would make a decision that hurts them? No one with that title, who takes that responsibility seriously, would do so. But it's not our titles that make us who we are, it's our choices. And I want to believe that your choices can reflect reason and, most importantly, morality. So what you choose and what you allow, like allowing that person who spoke first today, could have been kicked out because his speech was hateful, but you allowed it. What you allow reflects your values. So I need you to be people that match what you say and protect these children and protect this program. Thank you.
The last speaker is Melissa Roman.
I will just clarify that the first speaker was allowed 3 minutes, just as everybody else is allowed 3 minutes. It's a First Amendment right.
Good evening, board members. My name is Melissa Roman, and this is my child, Taylor Roman. We live 10 houses down from Bixby Elementary, and she started in kindergarten when the program was in its 3rd year. A lot of my friends in the neighborhood were unsure about dual immersion, but as a former high school teacher with a B-clad and a clad, I understood that academically, kids who go through dual immersion programs are more academically successful in middle school, are more academically powerful learners than those who don't. And so I knew I wanted my child to go into the program. Because so many people from my neighborhood were afraid of the program, which by the way is no longer the case. Now there's a waiting list to get in because everybody in the neighborhood realizes what a gem the program is. But because at that time they were unsure, people came from all over the city, and my child has had the privilege of going to school with people from all over Long Beach. I went to school in Orange County in a very isolated high school. I went to school kindergarten through 12th grade with the same children, most of whom looked like me. And I have to say that Long Beach is a breath of fresh air. Where I grew up in Villa Park, it's boring. Everybody's the same. That's not our world. And so anyways, to get back on track, just the last 6 years, participating and engaging with the families from all over the city has been one of the biggest gifts of my life. My husband grew up speaking Spanish until he was 5, but then he went to school in a white neighborhood in Boyne Park where nobody else spoke Spanish, and he forgot his Spanish. So today, his mom came here when she was 18, and his Spanish was his first language. So he sees what's happening with Taylor, and he cries because she is learning Spanish. She learned to read in Spanish before she learned to read in English. So I'm here today because as a working mom, I understand how challenging it is for families today to earn an income and provide for their children. I can't imagine what it would be like for me to have to spend an hour commuting across town to get my child to school every day. And I would find a way to do it. And I mean, we have 2 cars in our family, so I'm sure we could find a way, but it would be incredibly stressful. But I just want to appeal to you to recognize how many families there are all over this district who want to participate in a program like this. And as the board, you have the power to make this program accessible to children all over the city. I love Long Beach. Long Beach is a place in America where people from all different backgrounds come together and dwell together. And that is special, and I think that we need to protect it.
Thank you.
That concludes our public speakers for tonight.
Thank you.
So
next,
I'm going to interject, and I just want to ask my colleagues and our new superintendent and our board president to add this item, the DI program to Stevens, to the agenda.
I will bring that to the agenda committee. Next on this agenda, we have reports on superintendent advisory groups, and we'll start with business, budget, and policy development. Dr. Benitez.
No report from me today, Madam Crackhead.
Thank you. Instruction and student learning supports
No report.
and workforce development.
No report.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have item number 15, the consent calendar. We need a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I do have a few questions. Item 15.7, you're asking for $8,484,967 to support CTEs, including modernization of equipment and funding of pathway facilitator positions. And I guess my question is, would the funding be distributed equally among all CTE pathways, or would it be targeted to specific high schools?
I don't have the specific breakdown of the amounts. We have CTE programs across all of our pathways. We're building out CTE programs at every one of our high schools. And so this grant supplements other funding that we have to provide CTE pathways at every one of our high schools.
So the over $8 million, all of our high schools should expect to get some of that funding towards their CTE programs.
Again, every one of our high schools has CTE pathways. And this
I
money,
understand.
along with other funds that we have, is distributed to support those. I can't say exactly how much is at each. Some of our high schools are larger, and they have larger pathways, larger numbers of students. So it's not going to be equal across all of our schools, but every one of our high schools does have CT pathways supported in part by the CT grant.
Can I get a listing of what that breakdown's going to look like, and maybe possibly put it on online on the website so that our families and our schools know who's getting what?
Yeah, I can definitely look into what those amounts are, and we can get those to you.
Thank you. Also, item 15.8, the proposed budget includes $63,227,562 in contracts to provide services for students with exceptional needs. And could you provide an overview of the services that would be funded through these contracts? And how much of the funding would, or approximately how much is going to be allocated to one-on-one aides and other paraprofessional to support our students?
All right, good evening. So these contracts are for non-public agencies and non-public schools. And so that includes services that could be, like I said, non-public school. It could be speech and language pathology services, nursing support, in educationally related mental health services, instructional aids for students with disabilities, behavior intervention aids, behavior technicians. And I don't have the breakdown of how much is for the instructional aids. But that is something that we could.
The same thing, if you can just please email me the breakdown of that.
Oh. Yes, and I should also mention that this is like the largest bulk of the agency contracts.
Right.
But it's not all of them. We do
Yes.
have more that are coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yes. Actually, I do have the instructional aid. That's about 8 million.
Okay.
In this batch.
Thank you. Regarding bid number 2627-002 for ELOP provider services with an estimated annual expenditure of $32,500,000, could you please share which schools will receive these services? And I know I've asked that we do include the schools every time we make these approvals, and I'm going to ask again that in the future, when we are approving or asked to approve funding for ELOP contracts, that they are part of the board report agenda that we receive.
This item, the award bid, is acknowledging those organizations that have met the requirements of the bid and will be moving forward upon your approval to provide services to our schools. On the October 5th board meeting, you will actually receive, what will come before you is the individual contracts for each of these providers for each of the schools. So there are no schools yet assigned to these providers. That will come before you on August 5th, and you'll approve the individual contracts for each provider with each site. The total amount is the not to exceed that $32,500,000, but the actual individual contracts for each provider for each site will come before you August 5th.
Perfect. Item 103, the purchase of information technology goods and services. There are 15 contracts running through 2027, 2028, 2029, and 2030. And in fact, 8 of them run through either 2029 or 2030. My question is a $500,000 annual expenditure the amount allocated to each contract, or does it represent the total expenditure across all contracts? And then also, what is the total expenditure anticipated over the next 4 years?
Next 4 years, I'll have to provide that for you. I mean, it's $500,000 per. So, but I have a list of phased projects under our electronic door locks projects, which this CMAS is for. So we can provide that as well.
Okay, so this technology is maybe for the upgrades on schools? Is that what this is?
Yeah, correct.
For?
So, so if you see the memo that was attached, it specifically calls it out for our electronic door locks project. This is all for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's all my questions.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? In that case, I'll ask our board secretary to take a roll call vote.
Member Lopez?
I'm voting yes, but with the exception of item 15.6, number 69 and 70. Didn't have all the information I'd like to have there.
Member Otto?
Aye.
President Craighead?
Aye.
Member Benitez?
Aye.
And Vice President Miller?
Aye.
That is 5-0 with the exception of 15.6 for number 69 and 70 from Ms. Lopez.
President
Motion
Craighead,
passes.
If I can just acknowledge that the way that the board packets were presented to us this time, it's much appreciated that under each section of the consent calendar items, they were separated and labeled. So thank you, Patricia.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
I did notice that addition. It makes it easier to reference materials. Okay. Next on this agenda is a staff report, but there is none tonight, which leads us to the first item of new business, which is the seating of our student board member. And as you heard earlier, this young woman is very accomplished. And just a few highlights from her interview. Dr. Baker and I interviewed the 5 finalists that were introduced earlier, and then, as you can imagine, it was a very difficult decision because of the quality, integrity, intelligence of our students. But Elena kind of stood out for a lot of reasons, and just a few things I'd like to share. Elena likes policy. She enjoys policy. You're in the right place. And civic engagement and connecting with others. And Elena's passionate about community. That came out in the interview a lot. And in the application, she spoke about holding the district accountable. Holding the district, can you imagine? So we are going to welcome you aboard this evening to give you that opportunity, to give you the opportunity to hold us accountable, to share your thoughts, opinions, and unique perspective of being a student. So at this time, we're going to ask you to come to the podium, and our brand new superintendent, Mr. Zaid, will be the one to swear you in. So let's all enjoy this part, this monumental step.
So we're going to ask you to raise your right hand, and then you're going to repeat after me. I, Elena Castillo, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we're going to pause for pictures before she's seated. Okay, so our first order of business with our new student board member is a technicality, but we're going to vote on appointing, on making this appointment. So I need somebody to make a motion.
Motion to approve. Oh.
Second, go ahead.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, we
We're about
haven't.
to vote you into congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, hold that thought. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 5-0. It's official. Welcome aboard. And now the floor is yours if you'd like to make comments or acknowledgements, anything like that.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much for having me tonight. It's an incredible honor to be here and to have been selected for this position. I'd like to acknowledge once again my family for being here tonight, my mother and my grandparents. And then I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Vega, Mr. Puth, Mr. Waddles, and Dr. Saito for coming out to support me. Again, I could not have done it without them and their belief in me.
Well, welcome aboard. I know for me personally, it makes us feel more complete when we have a student board member. And the perspective and voice you bring is absolutely imperative to the work that we do. So welcome aboard. Yeah.
Can I double down on that just a little bit?
You may.
The part that I'm so appreciative of with this role is that often we're here making 50,000-foot decisions. So often, at least the person who's been here in this seat, and Juan and I were sitting here and reflecting on some of the past student board members from Axel to Alana, and that student's perspective that they bring in regards to SBAC or what's going on their campuses. It's just a simple reminder on, though these 50,000-foot decisions are being made, they're affecting students on an everyday level, and we are going to be indebted to you about providing that perspective.
I just want to congratulate you, and what a great honor to have you on the board, and encourage you to ask questions, encourage you to hold the district accountable. That is exactly what our student board members should be doing, and so I encourage you to participate and ask a lot of questions. I think that that's super important, and congratulations.
Okay, so we will move on with the agenda to item number 17.2, the monitoring report for Board Interim Goal 1A. So I will pass that over to Mr. Zaid.
To President Craighead, Vice President Miller, members of the board, and members of the Long Beach community, good evening. And tonight we bring forward our Q4 monitoring report for Interim Goal 1A, which is focused on foundational reading skills. Before discussing the data, I want to acknowledge two important realities that come out in our board report and in our data. One, since establishing the baseline in 2023, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding foundational expectations has grown from 69% to 73%. Secondly, the report clearly tells us that our progress is not yet sufficient to meet the ambitious goal this board has established for 2028. We should celebrate growth without becoming satisfied with what we're seeing. One of the strengths of student outcomes-focused governance is that it keeps our attention where it belongs, not simply on whether students improved, but on whether they improved enough and what leadership must do differently when they have not. As we have reviewed both the report and your thoughtful questions, I noticed a common thread. The conversation is no longer about whether we have the right structured literacy framework. It's about whether we are implementing that framework with clarity and consistency across every classroom and every school. Our data suggests that we know what works. Schools demonstrating the strongest outcomes share common characteristics: effective literacy coaching, consistent classroom feedback, and progress monitoring. The challenge before us is ensuring that every student experiences that same level of high-quality instruction, regardless of which classroom or school they attend. As the superintendent, I also see this report as an opportunity because it reminds us that improving literacy is not about adding more initiatives. It is about strengthening implementation, reducing variability, building leadership capacity, and using continuous improvement cycles to ensure that great instruction becomes the expectation everywhere. This evening, our team, which consists of our entire team, but you'll be hearing from Mr. Moskovitz in particular, will share where we are, what we've learned, and what is working, and most importantly, the actions we are taking to accelerate progress. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Moskovitz.
Thank you, Superintendent Zaid. Sounds good to say that. Appreciate that. I got a picture of David across the way. We'll post that up for his very first board meeting. That's pretty awesome. So we've talked, actually the one report that has come up most frequently over our last year of conversation about SOFG is the report around foundational skills. You all are probably becoming almost as expert as we are, and maybe you could even do this presentation. I don't even need to show the picture of Scarborough's rope because it is seared into the back of your brain, right? So, but I am going to reference it because as we talk about foundational skills, we're talking about the upper part of that rope, those foundational skills that are part of a student learning how to read. I want to take just a moment, though. I want to go just a little deeper, and I apologize I don't have a visual for this, but I want to go a little deeper into just kindergarten for just a moment. When we think about, if you look on figure 2 on page 90 of the report, you'll see that 75% of our kindergarten students met or exceeded the assessment, met or exceeded expectations on that foundational reading skills assessment, 75%. And of course, our goal overall is 82%. That is our target right now. There are 11 categories within a kindergarten first assessment. I'm just going to quickly read them just so you can kind of get a sense of what they are. Uppercase letter names, lowercase letter names, lowercase letter sounds, phonemes, syllables, word reading, phonemes blending, onset rhyme, phoneme final, rhyming words, phoneme segmenting. Now, that may not necessarily mean anything to you, but I just want you to know that there are 11 different categories to that foundational reading skills assessment. In order for students to be considered proficient, they have to be proficient in all 11 of those categories. We have, right now, 9 of those 11 categories. So in 9 of those 11 categories in kindergarten, 88% or more of our students are proficient in 9 of those 11 categories. The overall proficiency is 75%, but in 9 of the 11 categories, it's 88% or higher. A second category, or I guess the 10th category, if you will, is at 80%. And then one category, word reading, is at 77%. The reason that we have 75%, if you will, of kindergartners proficient, you really can't be much higher than the lowest category. Now, there are some students who are, they're not the same students who are not proficient in different categories, and that's why you get to the 75%. A lot of data, but the point in that is that when we look at something like 75% in kindergarten, 73% overall, it can feel and we see a decline and we see an insufficient movement. We all take that extremely seriously. It can be very frustrating, very, frankly, depressing to see that. But what's important and that what we are looking at is we're going deeper into the data to say, but what is it about our data? What is it about this assessment, about this learning that is preventing our students from attaining the success we want of them? And really there's these 2 areas in kindergarten, word reading and rhyming words. These are the 2 areas below the target. So now we ask ourselves, what about those 2 areas? And we know, and actually Ms. Lopez and I had a conversation earlier today, we were talking, we know that reading is not just the very top of Scarborough's rope. In order for students to read, they have to have all components. That includes things like writing. It needs to be a regular part of instruction. For English learners, designated ELD on a daily basis needs to be part of that. And the blending, the reason that rope is what it is it's all of these components coming together. Now, we've done a very intentional job with in particular, our elementary primary teachers, K2, over the last several years, to really get clear on what it means to do the daily decoding routines. that is really, most of these categories, most of these sections that I mentioned, is grounded in what they do in daily decoding routines. Where we need to get increasingly better at, and you saw this in some of the responses to some of the questions you asked, is bringing all of those components into a daily lesson. Students have to be grounded in text, connected text. They have to be writing. Students are not going to learn to read just from daily decoding routines, but we have spent significant time intentionally to ensure that our teachers were very skilled at that. And when we look at the categories within the FIRSA assessment, where our students are doing well, they're doing well in those categories that our teachers have been trained in and are becoming experts in. The next step then is, how do we ensure that those other two areas in this particular assessment, word reading and rhyming words, where do we bring that into play? And that is through that connected text, reading in not just sounds and letters, but actually connecting it into words, connecting it into writing. Students read to write, they write to read. And so that's just an example that when we look at a data point like you see in figure 1, it can feel, again, very frustrating, and we are frustrated, and we need to be frustrated, because frustration is how we're going to push through to a breakthrough. But there are areas where our students and our teachers are doing extremely well, and I think that's just an important point I want to point out before any further questions.
I hate to interrupt you, but I was really curious about how you, or at least how the district is able to decode which areas in which our students are excelling. Which program is that you're getting that? Is that the iReady? Like, I'm just curious on where you're getting.
So this is actually, this FIRSA assessment, Foundation Reading Skills Assessment, is a Long Beach Unified developed assessment, but it's grounded in research-based. We've had it in our district for many years. This is an assessment that our teachers actually give one-on-one with students. And they record as they're asking different questions and going through they're actually recording on individual sheets for each student. And then they go in and they input that data by hand into our Elroy system, which is our kind of our homegrown data system. Okay. And then what I'm looking at right here is a report that was pulled into Power BI, which you've heard us talk about that. But it actually, we can break it down at the individual component level of FIRSA. We can break it down by school, by teacher, by student. And that's what our schools use. As you will recall when we were at Oropeza, the data, we look at big data here. Yeah. But big data here doesn't always tell the story. As I just shared, the story is not that our students in kindergarten are failing in reading. Yeah. The story in kindergarten is that we have two areas where our students are not performing at the same level as they are in all the other areas. And our job then is to say, well, why not? And what are we going to do about that? And that's really has been our conversation through the spring, and will be continued our conversation with our principals and our teachers when they return in August, to say, what about those areas do we need to do better in? What are we missing in our instruction in those two areas specifically?
Wow.
Yes, please.
Is this question time? So first, a technical question that we'll get at the strategic question, Mr. Moskowitz. So we have here in figure 2 the total number of K students, first grade students, second grade students that were assessed. What percent of our overall number of students are represented in these assessments, Mr. Moskowitz?
I don't have the exact number, but an important point that I'm glad you asked the question. An important point is that our students who are in our dual immersion programs are not listed here. Yeah. When our students in K2 and dual immersion programs, they actually take foundational reading skills assessment in Spanish. Yeah. And we are prepared next year to bring that in side by side so you can see that. Actually, our students, the foundational reading skills assessments in Spanish, our students are actually doing better on that overall than they are on the English assessment, which is interesting. I mean, that's just kind of interesting to keep in mind. But we'll bring that in data next year. And that's approximately, we have about between 4,000 and 4,200 students per grade level, K2. So looking at that, you can see where there would be probably about 600 or so students that have taken the Spanish FIRSA because they're in a dual language program.
You would deduce that that's probably the largest subgroup of students that are not represented in this assessment?
That would be by far the largest.
Yeah.
The only other students that would not be represented would be students who may be in special education who their IEP designates that they are not to take it, but that's very few students.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that, because it gets me to the sort of more strategic question, and you alluded to it in what you just shared with us. So given that in 9 of these areas where the data is promising, right? Is there any thinking or work being done? And if so, could you elaborate on those two areas where we're not seeing what we want to see, what the correlation is with those two areas, and then the broader goal, the broader interim goal? In other words, do we need to focus in the, I mean, and I know it's not an either or, right, but how much energy needs to be focused on those two areas to bring that up versus in the 9 areas where we are seeing to achieve the broader goal? Because the interim goal, unfortunately for us through data, isn't measuring just those 9 areas.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So you could tell me all day, and I know you're not saying this way, Mr. Moskowitz, but in 3 of these areas we're doing really good, but we're not using those 3 areas. So could you talk a little bit more about how do we juxtapose the 2 areas that we're not seeing?
Absolutely.
What we're seeing? Yeah.
And I'm going to invite Mr. Zaid in along with me here, because just about 3 weeks ago, guess who was supporting this work very intentionally? The reason, I'm glad you asked the question as well. The word reading and rhyming words that I talked about, everything else is really skill-based, individual sounds, individual letters, blending syllables. You heard some of those types of words or concepts. The 2 that I mentioned, word reading and rhyming, let's go with word reading in particular. That is much more complex. That is not just learn a skill and repeat the skill. That is literally, can you read? And that is where you're blending all of those components of the rope. If I had brought up 1st and 2nd grade right now, I would have shared, and I will share, the lowest 2 areas in the lowest area in 1st and 2nd grade is our fluency component of foundational reading skills. We're gonna, by the way, as a little preview, we're gonna come to you on August 5th with 2 reports for fluency. And I just shared our lowest area in all 3 grades on the FIRSA is fluency. So it's a little preview of kind of what you'll probably see on August 5th. So the question is really, how do we get our students to read more fluently? And that is not a simple thing. That is not just go over some letters and sounds on the rug with them. You need those foundational components to be able to get students to read. That's how you break the code for them. But ultimately, the only way you get more fluent readers is by having students reading more frequently. Reading in their level text, reading at their instructional level, getting individualized small group instruction at their instructional level. Again, English language development for an English learner, writing, because a lot of students, all of us, learn to read better when we're actually writing. To encode and decode, it's kind of the reverse relationship with one another. So it's much more complex, which is why those areas are the lowest. So what we already know and what you've seen throughout the report is that where we're headed is beyond the isolated skill that our teachers have done very well with. We asked them to, and they have. But to get into how do we bring all of the components of Scarborough's rope, all the components of reading and language together. And that is our next step. We're already prepared to move that into next year, and that's where we'll be headed.
So, Mr. Moskowitz, along the same line, so the gap widened. So now we're at 9%, like in that gap. And so we're definitely not on track, and we need to reverse that trend to put us back on pace. So we did talk earlier about that writing, and I think it's important that we do understand that there is a need in the district to start placing an emphasis in writing, because there is a clear focus in reading, and reading is important, but as we spoke earlier, right, when there is writing, kids are also learning how to put words together. And so I think that seeing that what we're doing is not producing the results that we want, and in fact, we decreased 2% this year. I think we need to shift focus, and I think that in order to help get us back on pace, we might need to really consider placing an emphasis in that writing piece.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. That was a good conversation we had earlier. I think it's less shifting focus and it's more layering on the next piece. What we don't want is we don't want our teachers to stop the great things they've been doing. But now the question is, and this is true, this is frankly true with anytime you're doing professional development with teachers, or any adult, frankly, it could be in any profession. There's only so much that anyone can take in and practice and implement at any one time. Our teachers have done exactly what we asked them to do, and we see the results of that. We actually see some positive outcomes in these foundational components. And we'll talk more later about fluency, because I think fluency is something that is worth our collective understanding. It's interesting, when we spent more time this last year on fluency than we have in recent years, and our fluency results went down a little bit. It's our conjecture, and we're looking at the data, in real time. Our conjecture is not because our students can't read, or they're reading less effectively than they were, less proficiently than they were last year. But the way our teachers are assessing fluency, they're being much more precise. And again, we'll talk more later about what fluency, all that it entails. But we think it's a way that our teachers are assessing fluency and not necessarily our students' ability to read. Again, that's kind of something we'll tease out. But going back to them, it's not a shift away from, but it's a layering in. And yes, writing is something that has always been a strong part of a reading program, a literacy program, and we do need to do a better job. Now that we're getting these concrete skills in, we need to do a better job of going on to some of those next steps, including fluency, including writing.
No, and I agree. I think they're working really hard. Last year I talked about all of the changes taking place up here at the district level, how that all trickled down into the classroom. So no matter how hard teachers were working, that was impacting the results we were getting. But when we look at our data and we are consistently not showing the results that we want, I think at some point we do have to say, okay, well, this hasn't worked for a few years. So we do need to see what else we can do differently to change the course that we're taking. Because again, we didn't improve, we decreased by 2% this last school year.
One of the things that I would like to jump in, because I appreciate the dialogue, I appreciate the feedback, opportunities for us to take into consideration all of the thoughts. One of the things that I appreciate about being an education organization is that we're committed to learning. And because we're committed to learning, this is an opportunity to learn our way into student outcomes focused governance and our interim goals and the goals that we have set. In looking at our interim goals, the thing that I'm hoping can be a walk-away point or a talking point is that this single data point isn't telling the entire story. Yeah. What we want you to hear is that we do have educators working extremely hard, and there are 11 components that braid together. And what we're saying is we want to see, once it is braided together, once you get this far down the track, that is the point that we want to take a look at. And when we go to our data, you can see that we have our lowest area is at 77%, but we have areas that are at 92%. But that is not making its way into the conversation. And so it sounds as if the only answer is work harder. And there is, of course, always room to improve in regards to differentiated small group instruction. There's always room to improve in terms of the variance that we are seeing. But what you're hearing is that in this particular interim report, we're saying FIRSA, but we're not looking at all the elements. What you're actually looking at is how then it shows up in word reading or how it is showing up in fluency, which we will have an opportunity to spend a little bit more time at our next board meeting on August 5th. The question here with this particular report is we want to acknowledge that we have, yes, made insufficient movement towards our target, but we also want to interrogate a little bit more the data points that we're looking at. Because even when we look at fluency, which has been much of a focus, the way we're assessing fluency is words per minute. Well, what happens when our teachers are helping our students focus on accuracy to ensure that they have the right comprehension? What happens when our students are focused on expression, which also supports comprehension and supports their ability to write. And even writing is an indication of how these skills are coming together for our students. So the thing that I'm also sharing is, in addition to the highlights and the working hard components, one of the questions that we also get to learn our way into is not just are we asking the right questions or looking at the right data points, but are we looking at single points, and what are the additional context or stories that we want to hear, especially when you hear us making adjustments like Fluency Plus. Listening to our teachers who are saying reading as fast as you can doesn't tell the whole story. So yes, you can read words per minute to get quote unquote a marker, but could that be a false indicator if I'm not reading for meaning? And so these are the type of conversations that we get to have not only in the boardroom, which is what I love about student outcomes focused governance, but it's conversations that we have to have in our classrooms with our teachers, with our leaders, and with everyone to make sure that we're measuring the right thing, speaking to the right data point. And when we only have a single data point, how can we bring other aspects in so that we can give some indications to a larger story that is more representative and true to some of our educators and the work that they are actually doing in this space. And that's also the thing that I love most about field trips. We will plan another one, but there is nothing like walking through the classrooms for yourself, seeing the work at hand, and then speaking to it as well.
Yeah. Thank you, David, for the clarification here. I'm going to get us some, efficiency points real quick. And it's actually centered on figure 2. And so as we look at the data point for our first graders who unfortunately performed at a 70% met or exceeded level, what factors do you think played in the lower proficiency in that percentage? And also, what activities or changes are you looking to add to support our first graders?
Yeah, I actually don't have the breakdown right in front of me like I did for kinder. Like we could get to that. First grade has the most components on FIRSA. So I said there are 11 components in kindergarten. I think there's about 7 in second grade, and there's about 15 or 16 in first grade, because first grade is such a critical year in putting it all together. First grade is also the first time where fluency as its pure read a passage comes into play. In kindergarten, the word reading is literally just, can you read individual words? In first grade, it's the first time they have to fluently read an entire passage. And so that fluency piece in first grade is incredibly important as well. When we come back in August, we can talk a little bit more about how fluency comes into play, and I can give you some breakdown by grade level, and you'll actually see it on the report. But that is the area. Again, more areas. When you have more areas that you're assessing, you increase the likelihood that a student might fall off track in any of the areas. And what this FIRSA data is showing us is percent of students that are on track in all areas. So when you increase the number of components, you increase the potential for them to be off track. But the lowest area in first grade is the fluency component. And so again, that is going back to how do we make sure that our students are reading, not just learning the individual skills of reading, but putting it together more frequently.
Brian, I want to go back to, I should say, Mr. Moskowitz, I want to go back to a point that Mr. Zaid just shared around whether we have the right indicators, the right assessments, the right measures, and if so, how do we maintain fidelity to that? As you were sharing your last point, Mr. Zaid, I was reminded that, look, at the end of the day, the interim goals are your goals. Your interim goals. The indicators, the assessment, if we're going to pivot or shift, that's on you all. We need for whatever you all decide and in conversation and we learn into to get us to 70% on the SBAC. Right? So pivot all you want, shift all you want, look at 9/11, because ultimately those are interim goals that you all set up, interim targets that you all set up. If indicators need to change or assessment needs to change, I think I want to emphasize, my question is I want to emphasize that the questions that I'm asking are coming from, I'm looking at that 70% on SBAC and understanding that this is the fourth quarter first FRSA. Are we seeing, or did we notice, because we don't have the data, but again, this is your interim goal, variance across where, and I'll just use the first grade example to bullet, whether it's kindergarten, first grade, kindergarten, you're just starting school, so in that first quarter assessment. But are we seeing variance either up or down or trending up, because this is the fourth quarter assessment, right? SBAC is end of the year as well. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, we can do all the tweaking to get to that 2028, but we're looking at SBAC.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So historically, and I could go back we could actually pull all the reports we've done for 1A this year, but historically the Q4 FIRSA is always higher than each of the Q1, 2, 3, 4. Students they're continuing to build their skill. Teachers are, as they're seeing students who are off track, that's who they're focusing in on in small group instruction and intervention. So it's almost always true that the Q4 data in FIRSA is higher than Qs 1 through 3, and it does kind of build. So that's definitely true. Something else you said, though, I think that as we're looking at the data and we're thinking about what are those components, this was actually interesting. I don't know which board member asked this. One of the things I appreciate about board questions that we get is sometimes it actually makes us look at something differently than we necessarily were doing so. So one of the questions was asking about cohort data. And we weren't totally sure what the question was intending, but we did, and you saw in our response, is our research and student outcomes team, looked at students who had been with us kinder, first, and second. And how did those students do on the same assessment in second grade? And interestingly, across all three grades, when they were in kindergarten, when they were in first, and when they were in second, they were about 5% higher than the overall averages that you're seeing. That tells us a couple things. One, when students are with us, they're actually doing fairly well. When they're with us, they're doing fairly well, and they're approaching, our second graders that have been with us since kinder are approaching the target that we set. What that also tells us is, and we know this, this is not new information, but we know that we have a lot of mobility in our district. And so part of what we need to think more about is if a student comes to us in first grade for the first time, what do we need to do early on to figure out what might they be missing from either they weren't in kindergarten because it's not a required grade, or maybe they were in another location and they just didn't have the same, we don't know. But that's like a learning even from the question, what do we do for students who have not been with us along the way? What do we need to do to figure out what it is about their learning, where there might be some instructional gaps, and how can we accelerate that for those students? So again, just an example of the question generating some different thinking for us.
Well, that was my question about the cohort.
I didn't want to say,
Well, no, I'm gonna claim it.
You asked that.
My intention was not to have a look at the students that had been with us since kindergarten and follow them, that cohort, because that would be just a subsection of a cohort. But because the percentage of met or exceeded was down to 70% in first grade from 75% in kindergarten, my thinking was, are we following the kindergartners going into first grade? Is that the same group of students? And I probably didn't ask that correctly, but I'm glad I didn't, because you came up with something else that I didn't intend that actually sounds good.
You did ask the question that you intended, but what we do, when we look at cohorts, we can't look at separate groups of students. So if we're looking at how did students do in kinder and how did students do in first, we have to take, in a true cohort model, we have to only look at the students who were with us in kinder and first. Because when you bring in a different group of students in first, you can't compare how did they do in kinder, because it's not apples to apples.
It's not the same students.
So
they're not the same
our
students.
research team, who are much more brilliant than I am when it comes to this, when we talk about cohort data, it's not just how did kinder compare to first, it's how did the students who are with us in kinder compare to the students that are still with us in first. That's how you do cohort data.
I know we're getting close to concluding this interim goal, but then I have one more question, not trying to open up this can of worms, but just out of curiosity. Let's just say there was a community member who has a child with special needs who happens to be in the 2nd grade but is working on their reading skills. If that child was currently not part of the current assessment group but is improving in their reading skills, is there a way that they could transition into this group of students that are being captured?
Yes, that's an IEP team discussion and decision. So when you're having the IEP or the community members having the IEP, you're talking about the student's progress and how they're going to be assessed. So that is all discussed at the IEP team.
Okay. So to be clear, this is something that a community member should advocate for during their IEP meeting. Great.
Just a quick question. Which student groups were the furthest away from meeting the goal?
I don't have that data in front of me. We do have that data. We do look at that data. In particular, our at the school level, our teachers and our students, our teachers and our principals are looking at that data to determine which students need more support. Is there a specific subgroup you're seeking? Are you talking ethnicity? Are you talking?
Yeah, I think you've been in every meeting. I ask for that particular data every time we come up with interim goals or goals, and I think that's important because at some point we have to engage in conversation as to, which subgroups are, meeting goals and which are not, and what we need to do. And so when we bring them all together, it's great. However, there is huge value in breaking down those subgroups, and I know that information is can be accessed quickly. And so I'm going to ask that this coming school year, as we are presenting we're going over our interim goals, that we do have that data available to us, because I think we need to engage in conversation as to if there are certain subgroups that are not making that progress we want them to make, then let's talk about it, and let's talk about what we can do to support all of our groups.
Yeah, I understand, and I know we've had this conversation. I'll ask Ms. Craighead and Mr. Miller next time we're on our SOFG meeting with our coach, Greg Klein, if we can kind of bring that question back. I know we've kind of grappled with that before. The guidance we have been given is because the interim goal is not an interim goal about subgroup performance, but an overall. That's why we create the reports the way we do. But I think it's worth a continued conversation to see what might be the advisement on something like that when a goal isn't necessarily specific to demographics.
I understand what our coaches are advising. We are paying them. They are working for us. I am asking as a board member to have that data available to us as a board. At least to me, I'd like to see where our subgroups are. And so I am asking for that data to be readily available when we are talking about our interim goals, please.
Okay, so I think we're at the point where we can vote to accept this monitoring report.
I move to accept the monitoring report.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And our student board member with her first preferential vote.
Aye.
And Ms. Castillo, I can promise you that for the next reports, you will get these a couple weeks ahead of time so you can review them.
Thank you.
And so that passes 5-0 with a preferential vote from our newly seated student board member. And next on the agenda, we have student outcome focused governance, quarterly board self-evaluation, and I will hand it over to Dr. Benitez.
Thank you, President Craighead. So in the interest of time and efficiency, I asked if I confirmed that each of our board packets would contain both the rubric that we're using, but also where we left off at the last quarterly assessment. It's done that. So rather than go column by column, what I'd like to do is have round by round each of us share whether they agree or not that we are either at the same column where we were last time, and if you don't think we are, to share whether you think we've moved up or gone down. and that way we don't have to go one by one, score by score. But if there is a difference of opinion on where we're at this time around with this quarterly assessment, that then we would focus our conversation and discussions there. So if we go by where we left off at the last quarterly assessment, we were in that first, under vision and goals, we were at meeting student outcomes focus with a score of 25 out of 25 possible there. We were not at meeting student outcomes focus 35, column D, because the first row there under that, the board used a process that includes students, parents, staff, and community members in a way that led them to express ownership of the adopted goals. We had shared that we wanted to wait until after we all did our community check-ins so that we could then develop an indicator of how we would know that we were achieving that or not. So if there is disagreement that we're in a different column, I'd love to hear that.
I just want to make one clarification. I think you said meeting student outcomes,
yes.
but you meant to say mastering.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. So
No
column,
problem.
I'm sorry, column C is meeting, column D is mastering, correct. So we were at meeting student outcomes. So I'm just affirming whether we believe we're still there or we're in a different. Okay. So we're in agreement that we're not yet at mastering. Okay. So we're at 25 there then. I'll move on to the next one.
Before you go
Yes.
on, I just want to uplift the key next steps. I don't know who added that to the rubric, but I think it's very helpful.
Yes, so the key next steps would be to continue and strengthen our community engagement sessions in order to eventually determine that the community, in accordance with this, expresses ownership of the goals. And again, just reminding us that we had a previous conversation that we would look back at that after all of us had our community check-in meetings.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I just
Okay.
thought it was very helpful to have these next steps with the rubric.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one under values and guardrails. So where we left off at the last quarterly assessment was that we were at meeting student outcomes focus, which gave us 10 points. We were not yet at mastering student outcomes focused, and we had 2 out of 3 in that. So any thoughts on whether we have changed from our last quarterly assessment? Everyone confirm that we think we're still at the same place?
Maria, did you have input?
Well, I don't even think we're there. I'm reading that the board has considered adoption of one or more theories of action to drive the school system's overall strategic direction.
Yeah, we did that, and we were.
Can we refresh my memory what we did
Sure.
at that time?
So we were presented with a theory of action, and by being presented with it and considering it, whether we chose to adopt it or not, and we didn't choose to adopt it, that fulfilled that.
So long as it was presented, we fulfilled it.
Correct.
All right.
That was as per our coach.
So we're good with same? Correct. Okay, so then we're still at 10 points, so we're at 35. Here's where I both want to share where we left off and then share,
You know what, before we go on,
Yeah.
can I add something on this last one for values and guardrails? The third one here is about our board guardrails,
under which column?
mastering student outcomes. And I think we're missing the mark only because we haven't had the opportunity to evaluate our guardrails yet because they were recently adopted. And so I'm wondering if we should add evaluating the guardrails in with our next board self-evaluation so that we do take care of that. And then we can,
I'm good with that.
okay,
Yeah, then that way we can get credit for that. one.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
right, okay.
Thank you. So next area is monitoring and accountability. So a big aspect of this, and we were at meeting student outcomes. We gave ourselves 20 points for that. But a big component of that falls under the row where 26. So how much time we're investing in monitoring goals. We had been investing over 25% time. What our coaches shared with us this time is that we're actually under 10%. And so I want to be able to speak to that a little bit. We had a lot of work that we did in this last quarter around sort of end of academic year, LCAP, budget engagement. We were conducting a superintendent search as well. So I don't think that the last quarter reflects that we've deviated away from this model, but more that we had some pressing priorities. And so I don't think we'll have an issue moving forward with coming back to having more percent of our time being focused on monitoring.
If I can add to that, when we were with Mr. Klein the other day, he also reminded us in the way our monitoring calendar worked, that the last 2 or 3 monitoring reports were interim guardrails.
That's right.
And the interim guardrail
Those
discussions don't count towards
Right.
this. So it was kind of a combination of a lot of conversation about other end of year type of things, and where we were talking SOFG, it was guardrails and not goals.
Correct. And we had a sub-conversation in our superintendent advisory meeting that, again, I don't feel that we've deviated from it. Just the calendaring of it didn't reflect that in the last 3 months. So because this is new information to my colleagues here, I just wanted to share that this last quarter we were under 10% per coaches providing that information. So unfortunately, from the rubric, that puts us at 0 points that we're not outcomes focused, because that second column, approaching student outcomes focus, requires that the board spends 10% of our time monitoring our goals. So it is, but I do think it's just a reflection of where we were the last 3 months. So we would get 0 points in this case for that area. Next area under communication and collaboration, we got 1 point last quarter. So unless there is a thought that we've either moved down or up, do we agree that we're still at 1 point? Meaning that we're approaching student outcomes but not yet meeting student outcomes focus. So under key next steps, there are a couple of things there that can get us back to moving in that direction. Okay. So
I think this is more of a Greg Klein question, because and it puts us in a weird catch-22, because I think about the last 3 months, and you're correct, we did have a number of agenda items that were more business focused, and they put us in a weird position. We even added a board meeting that didn't have any.
Correct. The superintendent.
Yeah, it was a superintendent swearing in meeting, but all things considered, we still fell short of being able to reduce the amount of items on our board agenda. I know that we're not supposed to have, correct me if I'm wrong, there was one request that we don't have too many items on the agenda, but I thought there was another one that talked about not too many meetings within the month. Is
More
there
than
another?
2.
Yeah.
And the number of items was 5 new business.
Right.
Items.
And I guess this is a question for me and President Craighead. I think that's something that we should bring back to Greg as well, about how we maneuver items like this in the future.
I'm sorry, it was 4 meetings, not 2, 4.
Four meetings. How we maneuver items like this in the future. Obviously, we have no intentions of doing another super search, but who knows what items can come on the agenda or need to be addressed. And so I'd be curious on how to move forward while still or the strategies to move forward um, to support our SOFG work. So
Right, and so the mastering part would require that we have no more than 5 main items, right? You know, at the end of the day, it's potentially 4 additional points, but we would still need to also take a deeper dive into the policy diet component, which I've spoken to the last 2 board meetings, meaning the reviewing of our current policies and the monitoring of specific policies, reviewing, again, at least once during the term of our office, but monitoring on a more ongoing basis. That's going to require a little bit more extensive work. We had a brief conversation with Jeff today on potential conversation for the future of determining which policies are more operational, which policies are more governance, and because we're not going to be able to monitor and review 100 policies at any given time. So there is an upcoming meeting with the SOFG team and Jeff, and I'm hoping that out of that meeting, at the latest, in our August by our August meeting date, that we have an update on what are some potential next steps that we can work on either September or October. But to your point, Eric, if it's a decision this board will have to make on whether that's the work we want to do to master student outcomes in addition to the number of agenda items on meetings. So again, just confirming that we are in agreement that we're at 1 point approaching student outcomes for that area.
agreed.
Ms. Lopez, yes? Okay. Unity and trust, we gave ourselves 3 points for that one, I believe, in the last quarter. Am I reading this correctly? Yep. We were not yet at mastering. One of the areas that we're not yet at mastering is whether we have memorized as board members our board goals. And again, that could be something that we could work into a upcoming meeting publicly, just showing demonstration that we know where we're at with our board goals and what our status is with each of those goals. That would be something that I would ask you and President Craighead if we could explore, like, what options we have in terms of confirming that.
An I-ready assessment? No. For me, when I read that, the first thing that came to mind would be the orchestration of our community check-ins. Because, at least for those that have done the community check-ins, we know at least the heightened level of detail that you need to know, at least for the responses for the community. Now, does that clearly orchestrate mastery of our 4 board goals? I don't know, but I do look at that as an opportunity or a poignant activity that captures at least a knowledgeable understanding of them.
And they've offered other suggestions, not necessarily to determine whether we have memorized them at all, or all of us. I'd be the first one to say I would be hesitant to do like a quiz here on the spot of us, because that's not the intent of this. But they offered things like, hey, if you all have business cards, maybe you have the board goals written on the back of your business cards. As you're sharing the business cards on the back of them, it brings our attention back to our board goals. In our board reports, right, we have a newsletter that goes out. The board reports, they're already there. We already have things in place where we could just, on an honor system, say like, hey, what do we want to use as an indicator that we all memorize these goals? Again, not a decision for us today, but I think that would not require much effort on our part to just determine what are we going to use to show. And it could be something like on the honor system, just do it one by one, a kind of check-in on it. So all I'm getting at is that I think that's more digestible conversation and more actionable than the policy diet one. All right.
Agreed.
That takes us to continuous improvement. That's the last area. We gave ourselves 0 points. I'm sorry. We were missing the way we annual cost of that, and again, that's substantive work there for that. So I would say that we still are at 0 points for that last one. And to get 1 point, that would be one of the big lifts in terms of annual costs of staff time invested in governance during our annual self-evaluation.
Yeah, and I know that as we turn that off. As we speak to that that goal, obviously, when we were having conversations about it, it was with a tenured superintendent who had been in the role for 6 years. With David having his 90-day plan, along with just some of the early onsets of being onboarded into the role, I not only can see us not achieving that for the next 90 days, but probably even coming up to next assessment, just because I know that we'd have larger priorities. But I guess it is something that as I speak to the prioritization of this, meaning that it doesn't need to be an urgent item for our board, know that that is something that I hope that, David, over the next 6 months, you can create a creative way of capturing that. Because I know even with our conversations with Jill, it was a cumbersome idea to even capture how much of each staff person's time was being allotted to board goal work. And so, unfortunately, we still don't have a good answer to that, but I know that it is something that will be vital for us to know going into let's call it the new year in 2027. So if you can at least strategize on what that would look like over the next 6 months, I think that would be important for us.
So, colleagues, I have us then, because of our reduction in points in one of the key areas, I have us at 39, if anyone's been tracking.
I do.
Points.
Yeah, no, that's the same.
That is sad but true. Yep,
Yeah.
we're at 39.
So do we need, how do we codify that we've done the self-assessment? Just the scoring, 39?
Yeah, we motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need a motion to accept the results of our self-evaluation.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the self-evaluation for quarter 2 at the score of 39.
Second.
Any discussion?
2 points of discussion, President Craighead. One is I would like to present some options and recommendations because there's at least 2 of these that I think we can kind of knock out in the next couple months. And also, given that Mr. Miller, I think you have your community check-in at the end of this month.
I
Ms.
do.
Lopez, I think yours is scheduled for August. That then after that August one that we can revisit, what those next steps are after our community check-ins, if that makes sense to my colleagues. Okay.
And then also, are you offering to lead the next self-evaluation?
I can.
Unless somebody else would like to do it,
The
or-
coaching suggests that it's good to rotate this so that we all become familiar.
Okay.
I've done it back-to-back times, but if I won't hold us back if you all want me to do it again, but the coaching does suggest that we rotate.
Okay. Well, is there somebody else who's interested in leading the self-evaluation? in that spirit of rotating, so everybody has a chance to do it? I'm not hearing anybody.
I'll do it again then, but I will say that this will, I don't think it does our board collectively any good for the same person. I can do it again and then for the next quarter.
Well, I do think, so I'm going to tease a little bit. So I'd be willing to trade, even though I have done this component of it before. And I'll say this because I agree with you from the efficacy of doing this role, right? And so as I have been studying, for no pun intended, the efficacy of our question asking during the monitoring portion of our meetings, I now have become more cognizant of the style of questions I ask to the team. And so I think it's literally that exercise of sitting down with Greg and really dissecting verbatim what has been said that has, at least for me, I think provided true guidance and support to the team, but more importantly, a strategic approach to how we improve student outcomes. I say all of this to say that came from taking on this role. So I think that a swap is, if you're okay with it.
What am I swapping into?
So you'd be trading with me for the question efficacy component of it. So it's where we grade our questions. Was it strategic? Was it, oh, I know this, there's 5 points. Was it timely? Technical. Was it technical? Was it, yeah. I should know this, but I don't. And that's.
So maybe you need another round of that.
Maybe another round. But all things considered, I'm going to tease, and I would say that the two most egregious rule breakers of those efficacy questions are you and I. Yeah. So
here's what I would say back, Eric, look, if no one else wants to do this, I don't think, again, it does our board any good because you've already done.
Yeah, I've already
the
done
quarterly assessment, right?
Yeah.
So, but if no one else is able to right now, I'll do it again, but with the condition that a new person, not going back to you.
Yeah.
And so that then you can move into another role, and then possibly I can move into the current role. But I don't think it does our board that the best practices approach that it's the same two people doing the quarterly assessments.
And I led I've led a couple myself, and so to your point, I think we're looking for somebody else to do it. But
if no one is able to at this point, I can do it one more time conditionally. If someone else can step into that in the next quarter. Okay.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
So that leaves me at the same role then?
It does until you improve.
Gotcha.
Your effectiveness of questions. That's going to stay. So unless there's further discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. So all in favor of accepting the self-evaluation?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 5-0 with a preferential vote. And next on our agenda is the student outcome focused governance implementation timeline. And I believe, Member Miller, you alluded to an event coming up.
Yeah, I'll
at the
just
end
give
of
a
this
quick
month.
update here. So my community check-in is scheduled for July 30th. It'll be at Browning High School. I think the time is 6 o'clock. It's going to be from 6 to 7:30. To that, obviously, I want to open an invitation up to my community in particular. So that's Signal Hill, Central Long Beach, West Long Beach. What I enjoy about this space, and part of the reason why Browning was ideal for me this time around, is I'm working with multiple community organizations that are going to be present. I have one organization that's going to be doing a small backpack giveaway, hopefully. Once again, to entice some of our families to come out. And there'll be a number of organizations, African-American serving organizations in particular, that should be present, as I have been open and honest about making sure that we have representation of all demographics, and I know that there's been an underrepresentation of our African-American parents at our community check-in, so I want to extend an even more heightened level of invitation to our African-American parents to come share their thoughts on our board goals, where we have performed well and where they felt that we have underperformed in regards to serving their children. So once again, July 30th, Browning. I have yet to actually extend an invitation to a partner for the event now that I sit here and think about it. So I do need to extend an invitation. Look at that. Do you see my buddy taking a look at his calendar? There he goes. All things considered, that's where we are at this moment.
Great. Is there anything else anybody would like to add on this agenda item? In which case, we are at report of board members, and we will start with our student board member. I don't know if you're prepared with, oh wait, what? What did I do? Did I miss something?
No, because I know we were talking about the implementation calendar. I thought, Board Member Lopez, did you also have an update on your August meeting? I know there somebody had
I
said
don't.
something.
I'll
Oh, okay.
report on it next time.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you would like to take this time to make a report. I know you had an opportunity earlier to speak, so we wouldn't really expect you to have something, but I wanted to give you the opportunity in case you wanted to report on something. But don't forget your, yeah.
Wow, it's kind of a lot of pressure, but I'm really excited to be here, but I think if there's anything I'd like to share with the board, it would be to highlight the work that Polly's RSVP, or Student Advisory Committee, did just this past year. We tackled the equity dilemma of bridging the social and educational gaps between students, specifically looking at how pathways were affecting our students. And the way we did that was through collaborating with our ASB members who were on RSVP, and when we really assessed the data of the ASB events and like what students were attending, and then we even surveyed students on why they felt they were, like, if they were enticed to go or not. And the biggest thing we saw was actually in counselor communication, that being a big driver in how our students interacted on campus. So what we saw was that our PACE and CIC students were receiving significantly more communication between their counselors, from their counselors, as compared to our non-specialized pathway students. And our non-specialized pathway students said that that made them feel less engaged in the community, and it made them feel less prepared for, it made them feel like they were less college ready and more disconnected from the community. So that's what our RSVP team had gathered, and we are hoping that next year we can start drafting policy or different ways that we can, using liberatory design, drafting different ways that we can bridge that divide and hopefully engage more of our community and our students be college ready. Thank you.
So, Ms. Castillo, that was off the cuff. That was, you didn't have a report ready. All the pressure of this is your first board meeting, and
She's always ready.
yeah, and that was great. So thank you. Member Miller, follow that.
Right. So I'll be brief. First, I know that the our Sankofa group is coming to an end. Their final day is tomorrow. Is it Friday? Friday. I know that we have an opportunity to visit tomorrow between. So I'm looking forward to stopping by, paying a visit. But all things considered, just wanted to send them a big congratulations. I got a nephew in that group, and he loves it. So big shout out to my man Spence. I also want to touch bases on a major topic that was discussed earlier doing public comment, which was our Stevens DI program. And so I just wanted to, first off, thank all of those parents and the students who came out today that not only expressed their concerns, but for the most part, some of them had suggestions on how we can support these young people. And so I appreciate that. I had a conversation with a small targeted group of parents a couple of weeks ago, and they provided a number of suggestions. I've shared those suggestions with both Brian and David. We look forward to providing a response to those comments in coming weeks, as I know a timely response would be ideal. I think that there are a number of nuances that I think some probably understand but may not know, and I wanted to make sure that that was also captured, is that during these summer months, there are a number of leadership team members who are not at their campuses. And so they too are given an opportunity to be away with their families, to take on second jobs, to have this time to themselves. And so as they get an opportunity to come back and address some of these topics, that's when we too will be able to holistically approach those questions and concerns. And so I will first off again thank those parents for the opportunity to speak with them and to learn a little bit more about the information that was provided to them, the level of concerns that they have around these suggested actions. But once again, I'll also ask for a little bit of grace as we continue to work through this as a system and as a team, because to be clear, from the board to the leadership team to the teachers to the students in those classrooms, we're all a team and we're all working together. So please give us the grace, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Dr. Benitez.
Yeah, just echoing Mr. Miller's gratitude for the public comment. I want to thank everyone that came out today for public comment. I also saw many members of the team, jotting down, so they're listening, and I'll use your phrase again, Mr. Zaid, learning into these opportunities. So how about that for a first superintendent meeting, Mr. Zaid? Congratulations to Mr. Zaid on getting through almost through this first one, Mr. Zaid. But I also want to express appreciation to the entire team for this transition that's going on. And it's not, you're on board now and everything's good to go. I've appreciated the videos for us to get to know you. I think we're on the third video thus far, Mr. Zaid. But I know that this is your intent, and you've shared this with me. I know it's the intent of these messages, that represents an entire team. All right, to get back to the team. So thank you to the team, not just the leadership team, but everyone that has played a role in this transition. And also appreciation to many of the folks that have reached out to me congratulating us for this superintendent. And not everyone has your contact information yet. So just wanted to share with you that many folks have personally reached out to me congratulating our district for the selection of the superintendent, and in many regards also thanking Dr. Baker for her service. But I think both, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've said this before, David, both represent a team here, right? And so we have full confidence in that moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Otto.
Yeah, I marveled at how smoothly the whole selection process went, and I was very cynical that we would get it done in the time frame that we were given, and it was a case study in how well that can be done. I've spoken to two members of the consulting team, and they were very, very pleased, and it just is another example of how Long Beach can do things well when there are all kinds of stuff out there. And remember what that group did in Fresno, where it all blew up, and that didn't happen here. As many of you know, I was then gone. I got to vote to select David remotely because I was on my way to Taiwan, where I was for a couple of weeks, and came back and felt what have I missed and all this thing. And it took till today, because I kind of got sick as a result of that. To hear everything that was going on, and I'm very. It's the Long Beach way. We just did a good job, with the possible exception of what we did today. And I'd ask our general counsel about this, but if you elect a student member of your board and you don't give her any information, and then you ask her to make comments, does that legally meet the definition of hazing? Because I think she did a great job, but it just shows how we can all work together, and I'm looking forward to moving ahead.
Thank you. Member Lopez.
Yes, as we welcome our new superintendent, we have the opportunity to begin a new chapter for our school district, one focused on growth, on collaboration, and what matters most, student success. This is also an opportunity to build a culture of trust, of respect, and of teamwork, one where teachers, staff members, and families feel valued and empowered to share their ideas, their concerns, and their experiences. I hope our new superintendent will spend time in our schools, visiting classrooms, listening to educators, talking with students, and seeing firsthand the successes and challenges that happen every day in our classrooms. Being present in schools will help support the important work our teachers and administrators do every day. This transition also provides an opportunity to support the talented people already in our district. Dedicated educators and staff members who demonstrate excellence, leadership, and innovation should be supported with opportunities for professional growth and career advancement. Investing in our employees will not only support, but help retain talented educators and staff. Also, a renewed focus on higher education is equally important. Our students should leave our schools prepared not only for graduation, but for college, for career, and for lifelong success. By straightening partnerships with colleges and universities and expanding access to honors and AP courses at the high school level will help open doors for our students. So this is a very important moment for our district, and I hope we embrace it with a shared commitment to excellence, to transparency, accountability, and student achievement. Good luck, Mr. Zaid.
Thank you. And I'll just mention something, and Mr. Miller, I thought you were going to talk about it, but the math collaborative happened. Yeah, that slipped your mind. He was only the MC for the whole event. But this is a collaboration between Long Beach Unified and Cal State Long Beach, and really I believe I want to thank the founders, Doris Robinson and Roberta Jenkins, and so many more people who give of themselves. They give their heart. They put their heart into these young men that they offer not just guidance and mentorship, but really a lifeline. And it's not just about tutoring and math. It's actually an intensive math program for our young men of color. They teach them so much more. I know you could speak. Well, your time is up though, but you can speak so much more about what the program means to these young men. But when you see them and they have this pride and the way they hold themselves, you know they didn't come into the program like that. You know they needed not just help with math, but believing in themselves. And so we have these people like Mr. Matt Calvin who come in and spend time with them and nurture them. And so going into the program and coming out of the program looks so different. And I just want to thank everybody involved in that because it's life-changing, it's life-altering. And one of the tenets to their success is bringing back former students to speak to the current students, and also talking about their success beyond high school. And it's truly inspiring and it's wonderful. So I just want to thank everybody. And then I'll just uplift what everybody's said about our new superintendent. It is wonderful to hear from the community. You know, congratulations on our selection. Congratulations on our new superintendent. And that feels really good, and that's because of the reputation that you have, and that's because of how people know you. And so we know going forward, there's nothing but hope and you know, collaboration and everything in our future. I know you've talked about your listening and learning tour. Apparently not easy for me to say, but easy for you to do, because you're going to spend the next 90 days with outreach to not just our school community, but others in the community, our city partners and our College Promise partners, everybody. So I want to thank you for that. I love that approach because, yeah, I know, don't get you started. But I love the approach of listening and learning. I think that's a sign of a good leader, is when you can listen and then act on that. So thank you. And now I'll turn it over to you for your report.
I would like to just reiterate the message to our community that came out tonight and shared their thoughts and also shared their concerns with us. And I look forward to working with our team and sending out some communication on the date for us to have a larger meeting and to address some of the questions that we've already received, as well as some of the concerns that were raised tonight. As I conclude my first 2 weeks and first board meeting, at the end of this week, I want to just share tonight a simple message of gratitude and appreciation. And I also want Elena to know that it is nice to have one other person who I can be new with. So this is both of our first board meeting, and the next one will be our second board meeting. So we are going to ride this together in our learning, and we'll make sure that you have the documents that you need as well. It has also been an incredible privilege to step into this role, to transition with Dr. Baker, and to spend these first days really listening and learning and experiencing our district from a new perspective. I have shared that I am aware of the history of Long Beach, but I do not know how our employees and our community is experiencing our systems in Long Beach. And it has been really nice to listen to their experiences, to deepen my understanding of what makes this community so extraordinary. And so just to share, over the last 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to visit a lot of our dedicated teams that make our district run every day. I spent time with school safety, with the Tucker Act program, expanded learning opportunities, our central services departments, including purchasing, contracts, grounds, duplicating, transportation, the warehouse, maintenance, and nutrition services. And I learned some extraordinary facts about our district. I didn't realize that our warehouse team processes over 750,000 units annually. I didn't know that nutrition services carefully prepares 1,000 specialized meals individually for students every day to meet their dietary needs. I didn't realize that our transportation team is working on and at the peak of their work, planning out and making sure that 3,500 students are routed safely to their ESY location. It was great to see our growing fleet of clean energy vehicles for a sustainable future. And everywhere that I went, I met professionals who take tremendous pride in serving the families and students of Long Beach Unified. Even while our summer programs are serving students each day, our teams across our district are simultaneously preparing classrooms and buses and meals and facilities and technology and countless other systems to make sure that we are ready for our first day of school. In the weeks ahead, I look forward to continuing to meet with students and with families and with staff and with community partners as a part of my commitment to listening first, learning deeply, and leading together. I have an announcement that I want to share that our back to school webpage will go live on July 31st and will include our back to school guide and other helpful information for families in preparation for our new school year. I also want to do a special thank you to the many student interns that I met who are working in this building and working in all of our buildings. I spent time asking them to share some of their experiences so I can continue to uplift them in our reports as we prepare students for their careers. I also want to thank the rising fourth graders that are part of the Sankofa Summers that interviewed me today with a lot of great questions, and Dr. Lovett and Dr. Prelude, as well as our ELOP enrichment team under the work of Dr. Gonzalez, who is just doing extraordinary work in our community. And I also want to thank those in the community who have extended warm thoughts, notes of solidarity, who have tapped me on the shoulder, let me know that they were praying for me, and individuals who have just shared encouragement. I want to once again thank our Board of Education for their trust and partnership, and thank our entire Long Beach community for the warm welcome that has been extended to my family. Also want to thank the community member who asked me a really important question. They said, does this mean as superintendent that you get a whole new senior team? And I said, no, I do not get an entirely new senior team. And even if I did, I would work with this extraordinary team that I have and the privilege to work with every day. I'm excited about what lies ahead. I am excited to have our newest board member. I will sport some green and gold with you on some days, but I actually have a pair of Nikes that go with all of our high schools that I looked forward to sporting, and together we'll continue to build on the extraordinary foundation of Long Beach. And as I've shared before, Long Beach is extraordinary, not because of one of us, but because of all of us. And so on tonight, I want to share a special thank you to an incredible city and an incredible opportunity because it is an honor to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the business of this meeting, and without objection, we'll adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and good night.